We decided to retrofit our home after a few years of living through the winters in this house and deciding that we just couldn't keep being so cold all winter. So we'd been having our heating on and I was working from home, so it was getting very expensive, but it wasn't any more comfortable having the heating on. It just never seemed to stay warm, it was never warm enough. I was working in this room with a hat on and gloves on in the middle of the winter, and it was clear that there was something that needed to be done to the house to make it warmer and more comfortable. It's also quite a damp house as well, and so we hoped that the retrofit would help solve the cold and the damp issues. In terms of the design, we didn't have much say over the design, but also we didn't have any knowledge ourselves, so we put our trust into Urbed, who were telling us what they thought we needed to do, how it would look, and obviously we did have a say over things like the colour of the final render that went on the external insulation. But mostly, I mean, we felt so ignorant about a retrofit, what it would involve, what sort of improvements would be made. We just left it to the experts. We had quite a lot of improvements in the retrofit. The most significant was the external insulation, which has been done on the side and the back of the house. We would have liked to have it done on the front, but we weren't going to be able to get planning permission for that. So on the front of the house we've had internal insulation done instead. We've also had extra insulation put on in the roof, in the attic, and a special kind of insulation under the floorboards, which is as much to do with absorbing moisture as it is to do with sort of adding an insulating layer. We've had the areas where we had the external insulation, we replaced the windows, so they're triple glazed now instead of double glazed. That was one of the most costly measures, so we weren't able to get all the windows replaced. It's difficult to know exactly how much the work cost. We did get some grants towards it, and because it was done as part of the Carbon Co-op retrofit programme, I know that things were maybe slightly cheaper than the reality of what they would have cost. Our loan amounted to about £27,000, and I think there was some contingencies on top of that, so we'll be repaying that back for quite a few years. The external wall insulation provides extra insulation onto a house which doesn't have cavity walls. It was very disruptive initially because of the noise of the drills going into the house, and I was working from home at times, so that was quite noisy. In terms of, there wasn't as much disruption inside the house, although, you know, obviously some of the wood fibres did get around. It was quite messy in the garden. We didn't have much of a garden by the end of the building work because of all the people going in and out of the garden and the house. But it is, of all the improvements, the one that we would probably recommend the most. The rooms that have had the internal wall insulation, you can notice, you know, very marginally, just not quite as well insulated as the ones that have had the external wall insulation. And obviously, when you have internal wall insulation, you're losing, you know, a small proportion of your room to put that insulation into, which you don't have to do with the external wall insulation. So I would really recommend it. I know it's quite expensive, and that sometimes people might prefer to go for other measures that might not be as costly, but I think it makes a huge difference in terms of comfort and cost, so your house will be less drafty and certainly warmer as well. The worst thing about the work was the process of having it done. It was extremely disruptive, it was extremely stressful. It took months longer than we had been led to believe it would take. So the actual process, you know, was the worst thing, but once it was all done, I don't think that we've had anything done that we wish we hadn't. I think having the whole house done all at the same time isn't necessarily something I'd recommend to people, but I'd recommend they kind of find out what improvements they need doing and prioritise them, and perhaps get, you know, the most essential one done, and then, you know, work their way through different improvements as they can afford it or as they have the ability to withstand having builders in their house for. Although the retrofit programme is, you know, largely about improving the environmental performance of the house, we knew that was going to happen and that would be great, but really what we were looking for was more more of improved comfort levels, and it definitely is. So it's warmer and it's significantly less damp. So our front room, which was north facing, used to be quite an unpleasant place to sit. Especially in the evenings. It used to feel cold and feel damp, and it doesn't anymore. It's much warmer, so when the heating has been on and is turned off, the house retains the heat a lot more, so we don't have to have it on as long or as high. And we also have a temperature gauge in the front room, and it sort of always tells us how warm the room is, and it's, you know, at least a few degrees warmer consistently to what it used to be.
You can visit homes like these at green open home events held regularly around the UK. For more information on how Carbon Co-op can help you improve your home and reduce your emissions, visit our website.